Linda's son, a former aide to New York Governor Kathy Hochul, left a New York City courthouse on Tuesday after she was charged with secretly acting as an agent of the Chinese government in exchange for millions of dollars in compensation and gifts. Both Sun and her husband, Chris Hu, were arrested Tuesday morning. Each pleaded not guilty to the criminal charges. Gerard Schaefer is a lawyer for Sun.
Charges are disappointing, that they are the product of an overly aggressive investigation.
Pardon me, excuse me.
And we are looking forward to exercising our right to a speedy trial and addressing these accusations in the forum where it's most appropriate, which is a court of law.
Federal prosecutors in Brooklyn said that while working in state government, Sun blocked representatives of the Taiwanese government from meeting with officials and sought to arrange for a high-level New York State official to visit China. In exchange, Chinese government representatives allegedly arranged for millions of dollars in transactions for Sun's husband, who had business activities in China. Prosecutors said the couple used money to buy a 2024 Ferrari Roma sports car, as well as property on New York's Long Island and in Honolulu worth about $6 million. Governor Hochul was not accused of any wrongdoing. A spokesperson for Hochul said her office fired Sun in March 2023.
I think, when people say diversity and inclusion, I think everybody agrees, or most people generally agree that it's a good thing, right? But I think right now we also need to bring in the word equity, right? Diversity is when you say that there's, many different types of people with different backgrounds and they're all, invited to the table. Inclusion is when, we include all of their ideas. But equity is when we make sure that all of the people who are at the table have equal access to making sure that their ideas and their thoughts are heard. And unfortunately, I think some of the statistics that you quoted is that we don't have.
So this lady is Linda's son, and she was working for Kathy Hochul in New York, and I think this story goes a lot deeper than what it's led off to be. I think it's really deep, and we need to be really concerned about this and really take a really good look at what's going on. Because if you listen to the first video, right, which is basically them arresting her, and in the second video, which is her and her talking about DEI initiatives and what she's trying to promote, okay, and I'm gonna play some more videos, and I want y'all to follow this story as I go along. And that's kind of what it is. It's a story. And what I'm thinking is, and my thought process behind it is, because this has happened on another occasion, which I'm gonna play this next video for you so you can see it happened with another Democrat. So that was Eric Swalwell. So see, it's even with just those two, like I said, this thing goes a lot deeper than what we think that it is from the surface. I mean, a lot of people, they're going to take this story in a couple weeks. They're going to just, they're going to stop, looking at it or whatever. They're not going to pay too much attention to it. Election time is coming up, so they're going to be focused on that. And I think that's important too. We do need to focus on the election and, what, which one has the best ideas, because in all, it is a battle of ideas between this person and that person, and who has the best ideas. Forget the race and all that other type stuff. Just, it's a battle of ideas. Who has the best ideas for the country? And that's it. Just leave it at that and make it very simple, but yeah, with all of these things that are happening, and this story comes up, at this time, people will tune it out or forget it, and it's just not something to just overlook. It's just something very important, and I think that it's important that we do our due diligence and look into this stuff.
Congressman Jim Banks writing a letter to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin demanding answers on whether Democrat vice presidential nominee Minnesota Governor Tim Walz complied with foreign travel reporting requirements for the security clearance that he likely had while serving with the Nebraska and Minnesota National Guard. This is during his 30 trips to China. Banks writes this: any individual traveling dozens of times to an adversarial nation in a personal capacity while having access to classified information poses an obvious security risk. An individual with a clearance should have had the good judgment not to engage in such travel in the first place. Waltz lived and taught in China for a year. He honeymooned there and ran a business taking students to China. We are wondering how deep this investigation is going.
I think this is a very interesting story too, because why would Kamala Harris pick Tim Walz as a VP? I mean, I know she's the vice president of the United States. She gets intel briefings. She can do background checks. She can check this guy's history, like what he's done, what he's been through, places he has gone. Like, she can do deep dives into each candidate that she picks as a VP. So if she says, well, I didn't know this was going on, I didn't know, that's kind of a lie, or she, basically kind of didn't do it because she already knew, or that she could come around and say that, hey, I didn't know, So I think that this was played. This was done purposely, to be honest with you. And I'm going to show you another clip with Kamala Harris saying the same thing, that the Chinese spy that was caught, in Kathy Hochul's office is saying the same thing, pushing the same agenda. But why would she choose this guy, knowing his background, knowing that he just spent that much time in China, that many telling to me of what she's really about and what type of agenda she's trying to push on, the country if she is put in power.
We are also talking much more rightly about equity, understanding that we must be clear-eyed about the fact that, yes, we want everyone to get an equal amount. That sounds right. But not everyone starts out from the same place.
Every White House component and every agency will be involved in this work because advancing equity has to be everyone's job.
We do talk about equity. We actually believe it is a good principle, in spite what some so-called leaders might try to suggest. We are proud of the fact that equity is one of our guiding principles. Proud of the fact that we understand equality is important, but not everybody starts out on the same base.
Equity has been a big push on the part of the Biden campaign and the first few days of his administration.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution.
There's a lot of pressure on President Biden to focus on racial equity. He has said he would do this. His administration wants to examine every single policy through this lens of equity.
So if you look at those clips, they're pushing this DEI thing very hard, right? So if you go back to the second clip that I showed, it was the same Chinese spy saying the same exact thing, the same agenda as Biden is pushing in his bills,
And it's embedded into our society via DEI. We've talked about this a lot on the show. DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it's not the way that you and I would define the word diversity, as diversity of thought, diversity of experience. Equity is not equality, even though it sounds very similar. And inclusion is not actual inclusion. It's the opposite of inclusion. It's not tolerance for a diversity of viewpoints or lifestyles or value systems. That's how you and I might understand DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, if we defined it the way that these terms have traditionally been defined. But the left, and by the left I mean Marxists, and which means communists, have redefined these words. Now, That's not only a facet of what it means to be a communist, to try to obliterate reality, it's also proof that communists want to control our lives. They want to appoint themselves as the arbiters of truth to
Talk to me, Pastor.
Okay, so
Preach on, brother.
yeah. Well, a few things. If DEI works anywhere, it has to work everywhere. Let me tell you where DEI does not work. The NBA and the NFL. Where are the Asian, Latino, and Hispanic basketball and football players? Where are the black guys in the National Hockey League? Those businesses are performance-based. It really comes down to, Dr. Phil, the issue of justice. And if you really want to go deep to the heart of this, and when I say that DEI treats the symptom but not the sickness, America is in a new civil war right now. The first civil war was the North versus the South. The new civil war is a war of ideologies concerning justice. And it's really going to come down to who gets to define what justice is, whether that's biblical justice or social justice. When moral law stands alone and DEI initiatives are based upon that, somebody gets to pretend that they are God.
I think that between the last lady and the Dr. Phil segment, give a brief, small snip clip about what DEI is, and kind of breaking it down a little bit about what it's about.